Hi, we're back again for a little video about something a bit different for today. We've put out some new videos in the last few weeks about what's been going on 2026 and all, and we've had a couple of emails recently from people who aren't so familiar with the work that we do, that Paul's done over the last few decades. And they've been asking, where have you got the information from? We've always said we don't make anything up, we don't go to anywhere else, and we talked about, I think, a fair few times in the past about how Paul's got the information he has, but we thought we'd just do a quick recap for people who aren't that familiar with what we do, so it's clear. Okay, so the question we've been asked twice in the last week is, where do we get the information from? Where's it actually coming from?
I guess that's such a big question. It really is, because
it is.
a lot of times a person who develops as a medium will be talking to, say, their spirit guide, and then after they've had a good connection with the spirit guide and that's been evidenced, then of course from there extraterrestrials may want to interact with you or may want to talk to you. And a lot of people try to force contact and contact situations, but an extraterrestrial race that's a decent extraterrestrial race will not allow you to force contact with them. So that's the first thing. So basically, since I was a child, I was getting sort of them coming to me. I didn't know how to talk to them. I didn't actually think that it was abnormal back then, all those years ago. I thought that they were coming to every person. And so I never really spoke about it. I suppose as a child, that's what you would expect, that, well, if it's happening to me, it's happening to everybody else. But then just over time, and it did take a fair few years, but over time I was able to understand that every 48 days I was going to get 20 minutes of contact, and which was really quite annoying, because I would prefer to have had contact, sort of more closely, rather than every 48 days or something. So I'd spend my time pondering life, the universe, and extraterrestrials, and would write down a lot of questions. And the first few times that they came over the months, I wasn't fast enough with the questions. So I'd ask a question and I'd wait and wait, and then suddenly the next minute, 20 minutes was gone, and I'd only asked 2 questions. So it was getting pretty frustrating. And then one day I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to sort of just ask all the questions that I've got written down, and then they can answer them and see what happens. So when they came, and when I say when they came, I was sitting there, a Zeta appeared, and they were all in watery form. You could see through them, but you could see all ripples and waves and everything. But when I looked off to my left-hand side, there was actually a Zeta face embedded in the wall. Now, that wasn't there when that watery entity was gone, so I was looking, going, who am I talking to here? I was really not real comfortable with that one in the wall. The watery one wasn't too bad. That was probably better. And so what I did was I did this rapid fire. Okay, so here are my questions, and I've got 6 or 7 questions, and I have them all written down. I've been documenting this from day one, so I've got well over 1,000 pages of information. Did the whole thing in OneNote as a database, and they answered every question. And I thought, gotcha, you see, now I've got contact. It must work this way all the time. No, that's not what happened. So basically, a couple of weeks later, I was walking around sort of outside, and I looked and I saw this orb about as big as a basketball just sitting on the ground, and it was purple. And I thought, oh, somebody's balloon has landed in the yard, or somebody's kicked a purple ball into the yard or something. So I walked over to pick it up, and I realized that I could see straight through it to the ground. And I thought, I'm not touching this. I don't know what it is, right? So as I walked off, the orb followed me, and so I stopped, and it was beside me, and I kept looking at it, thinking this is a bit strange. Anyway, I kept walking forward, and every time I walked forward, the orb walked forward as well. It then arose up slowly in front of me and scanned me, and I realized that orbs are used by many different beings, many different races, even spirit people use orbs. So just because you see an orb, it doesn't mean that it's an extraterrestrial. It could even be a lot. It can be a huge range of things. Within a couple of days after that experience, I was walking along in a park somewhere, and I heard somebody speaking to me telepathically. Now, I knew enough to know that, like, is it on my own mind? Is it something else going on? Am I unwell? And so I started asking questions, and they said, we've decided to change the way that we interact with you. So we want to know what is it that you expect of us. And so this conversation went on for weeks, and I kept saying to them, look, I actually don't want to change the conversation style. I just want to keep writing the questions down and giving them to you, and you do that. And they said no. I said, well, if you're not going to do that, then I'm not going to talk to you. And so for about 5 or 6 weeks, and we were doing what are called sittings then. We had about 5 or 6 sitters coming into the room. I'd go into trance, and the Zetas would be trying to speak through me. Often they'd do complete sentences backwards, which was quite interesting.
Did you know it was the Zetas at that point?
I had an idea that there was something going on, but I wasn't sure what it was. So we actually started filming, and then of course I wasn't watching the videos for some reason. Maybe it was some sort of screen memory technology or something at that point.
Maybe you just didn't want to hear it.
I didn't want to hear it.
I never wanted to hear it.
Yeah. And then one day I thought, oh, I'm going to watch just watch one of these videos. And I was just watching the video, and I was in VLC, that's a video program, and you can slow down the frame rate. And I slowed it down, and I saw this extraterrestrial sitting in the chair talking to the people. And I was horrified, to be honest. And anyway, on Thursday night, everybody turned up, and I said to them, I've got this video here, and look, here's some pictures, and there's an alien sitting in the chair. And they go, yeah, he's been here for 7 months. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me? And they go, well, we thought you knew. Okay, so it's interesting how the mind works, isn't it? So
here's a question that I know people will be possibly thinking right now, because I would be if I was listening to this for the first time.
Yeah.
Is 2 things. Firstly, how did you know that the answers that you were getting when you were doing the writing were actually an external being talking to you rather than your own mind?
Yeah.
And secondly, aliens come in all shapes and sizes, and there are also some kind of nice guys, and then there are some aliens you probably don't want anything to do with. So how did you know that these were the good guys, that this was okay to be talking with these guys? Because of course trance work is temporary possession, and that's just by the spirit people. So who knows how those extraterrestrials do it, but it's not quite the same. So how did you know that was a safe process?
So, well, I didn't know it was a safe process, and it's actually very dangerous ground for someone to be on when you're trying to develop as a trance medium. Even just doing it with spirits, you've got to spend some time getting to know the spirit person, because ultimately when they do come in and manage to fully, take over and speak and then leave, or take ectoplasm, create a voice box and speak for themselves, that's called independent direct voice. It's a decision that I had to make, and I made it very, very carefully. But the way I did it was a little bit sort of interesting. What I said to them was, look, I don't know who you are. You say you're these beings. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to test you. I'm going to ask you to perform some specific tests. And I won't be telling people what the tests were, but I'll say what one of them was. I had a piece of steel in the backyard. It was really old steel, but really heavy duty, couldn't be bent. And I said, if you are who you say you are, and that way I'm going to know that you're not a spirit, is I want you to straighten that piece of steel out. The next day I came back and looked, and was looking, and the steel was on the ground and it was totally straight. Now, it wasn't just slightly bent, it was bent into a hook previously, so like a J. So I thought to myself, well, somehow they've managed to bend this thing straight. First thing, that means that it's not me doing the talking, it's some other being. Now, how do I work out how to get these blokes, these guys, these aliens to sort of verify themselves? And so I kept asking them to do specific things. And they would materialize in front of people. They would show themselves to people. One time, which I thought was very funny, I woke up, walked out into the hallway. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was a Zeta there, and it was about 2 foot high, and it had its back to me. And so, it's this high, and I'm like, nearly 6 foot or something. And so I wasn't too scared of it, to be honest. And so I walked around and bent down and looked into its eyes and said, you do realize that I can see you? And then it disappeared. These things happened a lot. There was a lot of contact. When they turned up on Thursdays, we'd blow light bulbs in the house. And it wasn't just one or two. All the animals around us would start to howl when they turned up. So what I'd try and do is make the animals howl when there was nobody here. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't make the lights flash off and on either.
Will the smoke detectors go off?
Or make the smoke detectors go off, or anything like that, which seems to be a current occurrence. And so I started to realise that there was a pattern in regards to their contact and how I was building a level of conversation with them.
I guess, how do you, when people say to us, how can you trust them?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big thing with me. Like I said to them straight up, the minute you do anything wrong, we're terminating our conversation. There'll never be a chance to come back and work with us again. And so quite often they would do the most bizarre healings on people. People would turn up and say, look, I've got this wrong. And then we suddenly just see a little extraterrestrial appear and hop up on someone's knee and give them a healing. And sort of, they did this hundreds of times, and they did multiple healings. And there is a chapter, I think, in the primer of the Zeta race that shows some of the healings that the Zetas have done.
I think the most well-known healing that they did, simply because it's been talked about a lot, was with Kathleen Martin.
Yeah, Kathleen Martin, yeah.
That
But that's just one of hundreds, to be honest. And so to me, I kept thinking to myself, well, they haven't done anything wrong. They are doing what they said that they do. And then
plus they're healing people.
Plus they were healing people. And I thought, well, you know, if they're trying to deceive us, it's a pretty weird level of deception, because people are getting healed. That was the other thing. All along, as this was happening, spirits were also healing people, so we had the spirits healing people and the Zetas healing people. And then the big one was when we asked the craft to come at Wallachia in New South Wales, and we made sure we had a lot of people there. And then the craft did land and they came out, and then I knew that they were who they said that they were. I saw them completely the way they are, and so did a few other people. But that's when I realised that basically humanity's been fed a lie about extraterrestrials, and it's really only the people that have had contact, been abducted, that actually know probably some truth about different races. Now, you did say before, the question was, you know, how do you know that race is okay to deal with? You get an intuition. You have an intuitive process. So somebody will turn up, or an extraterrestrial, you've never seen them before, you look at them and you straight away you just go, no way, I have no wish to work with you whatsoever. You need to leave my space.
But I think that's something that's developed, though, hasn't it? That intuition with them.
Yeah.
Initially, I'd say that you wouldn't have had that. You just had to trust them by their actions, and if you'd asked them to leave, they would.
You see that, and that's the other thing. If you ask a being to leave and they don't, or they won't, you've got a problem there straight away. But especially if it's even a spirit, so you've just got to be really careful.
Yeah.
So that's how the Zetas verified themselves to me. Do you want to talk about anything in regards to that verification stuff?
Well, just that it takes a long time, and it's not straightforward. They can't give you evidence for birth certificates and death certificates and marriage certificates and all of that. So you have to be, I think, completely completely mindful the whole time about what's being said to you, how it's being said to you, and any actions that are occurring around you. Like I always say, if there's human-like behavior, you're probably dealing with a spirit. You know, if things are breaking, being knocked off shelves and stuff like that, human-related activity, then it's highly likely to be a human spirit. Extraterrestrials just aren't interested in breaking windows and making cups fly off shelves and things like that. They're just really not. And if they start saying things like, you know, you're on a mission, this is your job, you're a very important person,
you're a representative,
you're going to be the ambassador for humanity, you know, big, bold, ego-based statements, then I'd walk away very quickly. So, you know, always be mindful of what's being said and how it's being said, but just realizing that this connection, actual true connection with an extraterrestrial race that has good intention, is a lifelong journey. It is not something that you can develop in 6 months, in a year, maybe even 6 years. It's just not going to happen. It takes an awfully long time, and it's like that for a reason. So, you know, it's
absolutely,
but it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. I think I'll just say it again. Any information that we that we give on this channel, that's what they call it, this channel. I sound all professional when I say that. It comes from the Zetas, or the Anunnaki, or our spirit communicators, and we would not give information from a source, a being, if we had not verified who they were, regardless of who they are. And if we're given our own thoughts and opinions, we will say, look, this is just my thoughts, or this is just my opinion. Otherwise, it comes from the Zetas.
Do you remember when I said to you, I'm going to write down how I connect to the Zetas, and then I showed you the paperwork?
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
You thought it was a disaster because
I was like, okay, so we need to translate this into English now.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen.
No, but we did. We managed. We got there. We did it, and we used that process to teach other people.
So just the other thing is also I decided to allow people to test the Zetas through me. And so we had multiple scientists contact us from the States and get involved with William Trinite. But that process went on for many, many years for all of the different stuff. And it was interesting. So yeah, that's about it from us.
Yep. I think that's what we've got to say about that.
Yeah, okay.
Job done.
So the thing is, if you could subscribe, it'd be great. And there's a reason that I'm saying that. It's because I'm getting messages from people saying, I didn't know you put videos up.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's probably our fault because we didn't put anything out for ages.
Yeah.
So people have just unsubscribed, but just check that you're subscribed, and then you'll see the video notifications.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll see you very, very soon. Okay. Bye.